Mohammad ElBaradei, the director of the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, has won the Nobel Peace Prize, and he has been monitoring Iran's nuclear development, North Korea's, as well as dealing with all the nuclear issues that confront the world. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure to be with you, Farid.
Tell me first, what is the status, as far as you can tell, of Iran's nuclear capacity?
You know, Iran is not on the threshold of having nuclear weapon tomorrow. They are now having a substantive amount of low-enriched uranium, but that doesn't mean that they are going tomorrow to have nuclear weapons, because as long as they are under IAEA verification, as long as they are not weaponizing, you know.
You have seen some intelligence reports that Iran is actually quite close to being able to enrich the kind of uranium they need to weaponize. You do not believe that?
No, you can have all sorts of different scenarios, Farid. I mean, for example, you can say that they have now enough low-enriched uranium, you know, which if they kick the inspector out, they can turn it into high-enriched uranium, and then they can weaponize it. Yeah, sure, they can do that, you know, but there is a lot of if there. I mean, there is a lot of if. You assume that they are going to walk out of the non-proliferation regime. You assume that they are going to, you know, go for a nuclear weapon, that they have the capacity, capability, knowledge to weaponize quickly. You know, but even if I go by the CIA and other US intelligence, I mean, the estimation that even if they go through all these scenarios, we're still talking about 2 to 5 years from now. So that's what I'm saying. Yes, there is a concern, but don't hype the concern. There is ample time to engage them and reverse the concern and move into a more engagement rather than more isolation.
If you were advising President Obama, what would you say his first move should be with Iran?
I think his first move, he already did, is to stretch his hand. And I call on the Iranian right now, and I've talked to them here, that you really need to reciprocate. You need to also show goodwill. You need to take a couple of good steps that are showing goodwill. For example, a proposal for suspension or implementation of the additional protocol. Work with the agency in a more transparent way. The first step is mutual engagement based on respect, and then everything else will have to follow. Unfortunately, for the last 6 years, the policy, you know, that has been pursued it has failed. So we have to think of a different approach, and I'm very happy and glad and hopeful that President Obama understood that very well. That you need, if you have a problem, you need to talk to the people. You need to engage. You know, these are all common sense, but we have not been practicing that for the last 7, 8 years, and as a result, today, you know, we have to start from a new beginning.
Let's talk about what these negotiations might look like. You have spent a lot of time negotiating with the Iranians. From the outside, it looks like they're tough customers.
They're very tough customers. I mean, they have, I always say, and they have 1,000 years of experience as a bazaris. You know, they know, you know, what to ask for, what is the right price, and they also
then negotiate the price as up to the last minute.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, and they are very good at that, and they are very clever negotiator, and they think strategically, unlike the Arab world, where there is an emotional reaction. In Iran, it's a very strategic thinking, long-term thinking, which is, again, I admire them for that, but it is not going to be easy, and the negotiation will have to cover primarily their security. I mean, there is a sense of insecurity, whether you think of Iran regime as a theocracy, democracy, every regime, for them, regime survival is #1 priority.
Well, and they are surrounded by nuclear weapon states, Russia, China, India, Pakistan,
all
Israel,
of them,
yeah,
and 150,000 American troops. So one has to understand they have a sense of insecurity. We have to address their sense of insecurity. They have been called axis of evil. They have been, you know, there has been money allocated for regime change. So put yourself in their shoes. I mean, there is insecurity. Whether you agree with their ideology, you hate their ideology, that's a different matter. But they have to protect themselves. It's fundamentally, it's a security issue. It's a competition of power between the US and its ideology and Iran, which obviously have a different ideology. Well, you need to reconcile your differences. You need to put all your grievances on the table. The grievances goes back from until 1953, when the CIA toppled the first nationally elected president of Iran, President Mossadegh. Then we came to the hostage crisis. Then we came to the nuclear crisis, and we need to do a lot of work to put all this on the table and build trust. I mean, it is not really about. Many other countries are enriching uranium without the world making any fuss about it. Why are we making a fuss about Iran?
Who are you thinking of?
Well, there's a lot of these 13, 14 countries. Japan is enriching, Brazil is enriching, Argentina is enriching.
But isn't the argument that the Iranians lied to your agency for almost a decade, and that therefore there's deep distrust about Iran's intentions?
I fully agree with that. They did not tell us the truth. They should have reported to us what they have been doing. And I always said that there is a confidence deficit, and Iran has to go out of its way to build confidence by opening up with the agency, provide maximum transparency. And
are they doing that now? In your last report, you said they were not.
No, they are not.
Now, you know what Condoleezza Rice's argument about the negotiations is. It is that if the United States were to negotiate without preconditions with Iran, the Iranians would use the negotiations as a way to run out the clock, as they say. That is, to continue enriching and keep the negotiations going, all the while enriching. And that therefore the negotiations would become an end in and of themselves, because that would be the cover through which the Iranians would enrich. Do you agree with that?
If you don't talk in time of crisis, things definitely get much worse. Let us take North Korea. North Korea, as long as we were talking to them under the agreed framework during the Clinton administration, they didn't have a bomb. We stopped talking to them during the Bush administration. They developed a bomb. Iran, we did not talk to them because we ended up Iran mastering the technology. Hamas, we tried to quarantine, Hamas, and quarantine 1.5 million civilians. We ended up with a carnage, a slaughterhouse in Gaza. So I don't really buy that argument in general. No matter how your grievances, you have to talk. You have to talk. Talking, as we know, also, once you talk to your enemy, it creates a sense of moderation. I mean, yesterday terrorists are today prime ministers and president. We know that. This is reality, this is fact. But if we talk to Iran specifically, of course, if you start the negotiation, we have to freeze the activities. I mean, there has been a number of proposals on the table for freeze, that Iran, as a condition, not as a condition, but at least as a prelude to negotiation, Iran should freeze its enrichment activities, international community should freeze its sanctions, and then let us start and look for the grand bargain.
And you think the Iranians would agree to that?
I think there is a good possibility that they agree to that. In my experience with the Iranians over the last few years, they were ready at different times to agree on a freeze. And however, at that time, the Bush administration they insisted that they have a full suspension, which I knew, for the last few years, it was not going to happen.